Hey guys, Mark Allen, BHSpringSolutions LLC, BHSpringSolutions.com, and this is session one of BHSpringSolutions High Power University. There is an introductory video ahead of this, and if you've not seen that, you'll want to go back to that and watch that footage. It's a important foundation for where we're starting in our study of the high power pistol. BHSpringSolutions went into business in 2014, and our first objective was to serve high power owners, to optimize the high power pistol in all the ways that we knew we could already, and because we had done it in our own, a lot of the things in our own handguns, and also provide tools, options for grips, options for sights, options for operating systems, options for tools for that make the handgun easier to work on, and so that's what we endeavored to do. And then we branched off into 1911s and optimizing the 1911 design, the CZ75 and the Makarov, and we're moving on into other handgun models with optimized complete spring kits for those. And but this is specifically to study the high power design. It's 2020. As we're making this video, and in the last 3 years, my partner Slav and I have 3 times been to Liège, Belgium. Liège, Belgium is the city in Belgium where John Browning passed away. At his office there, until my partner and I went to Liège that time, I had no idea that Browning still has a very sizable facility in Liège, and this is separate and away from, I guess, the mothership in Urstal at the Fabrique Nationale factory, which is a historic factory in and of itself. So Slav and I have been there 3 times, and a lot of the reason we have been is because the only living contributing designer to the high power design is still heading up the company that he founded, RDIH. This is the company that has the SFS system for the high power pistol, and he's the designer of that. We'll be talking about Leon Hubert quite a bit, because the high power pistol as we know it today in a very optimized form contains a lot of this designer, Leon Hubert, and his contributions to the high power pistol. But we're going to get to that. But here's what we're going to do. As we're making this video, if you will go to Wikipedia and search Browning high power, we're actually going to use Wikipedia's material, and with complete acknowledgement to them, and to whomever is the contributor or the author of the material that we are using. We're going to drive some traffic to that page at Wikipedia. I'm assuming that using this material and adding to it is not going to be violating any author's rights or anything with from Wikipedia, because this is pretty public domain kind of stuff. It says from Wikipedia, the free encyclopedia. So we're going to be driving some traffic there. We're going to ask you to go there, and that's wikipedia.org. You can also go into your search bar, WIKIPEDIA, then put a space, Browning high power, and high power with HI-power. And you'll get to the page that I'm talking about. When you get there, you'll be at the Wikipedia website. The top of the page says Browning high power, and this is not a terribly long article. And so I've referenced to this article several times myself. And what we're actually going to do is we're going to ask you, for this part of High Power University, go to Wikipedia. And by the time you're watching this, whenever this is, it may be years from now, this page we expect will probably have changed, and a lot of the information that we're providing as we go through this Wikipedia article will probably be added to the Wikipedia website. But currently it is what it is, and we're going to basically go through this article with you. That's why we wanted you to go to this part of their website. And if this is years on in the future, and what you're reading at Wikipedia is not exactly what I'm reading here word for word, possibly it's been updated with some of the information that you're also going to be hearing now. So without further ado, we are going to start out. The Browning High Power is a single-action semi-automatic handgun available in 9mm and 40 Smith & Wesson calibers. That is true. It was also made by FN in the 30 Luger caliber, and it was also tried in the 41A and E, which is 41 Action Express, and this was back in the 80s or early 90s, and that did not work out at all. There has also been chamberings. This the 40 Smith & Wesson version that FN did, and for Browning, it has there has been some manufacturer, some aftermarket manufacturer, and it's very reverse engineered manufacturer of some 357 SIG barrels that will, and this is only for the 40 Smith & Wesson high powers. A lot of people are not aware. The 40 Smith & Wesson that was made at FN, that is a different gun than a 9mm high power. It's substantially similar. It shares most of the same parts. It's got some unique parts, namely the barrel, the recoil spring, the extractor, and the ejector. These are all unique parts to the 40 Smith & Wesson version. And that frame is a thicker, more robust frame. And it is the only one that it would be appropriate to try in an aftermarket barrel in a 357 SIG. So there has been a little bit more playing with the calibers than what we see here in Wikipedia, as I've mentioned. Continuing, it says it was based on a design, the high power, by American firearms inventor John Browning, and completed by Dieudonné Save at Fabrique Nationale, or FN, of Herstal, Belgium. Browning died in 1926, several years before the design was finalized. The high power is one of the most widely used military pistols in history, having been used by the armed forces of over 50 countries. I believe what I read was credible. It said it's been used by militaries or law enforcement or security forces in at least 93 countries is actually what would be more accurate. But for the armed forces of over 50 countries, that may very well be close. After 82 years of continuous production, the high power was discontinued in 2017 by Browning Arms, but it remained in production in some countries under license. Under license, I actually will explain that, but I don't think that's quite a quote under license, but possibly. There's an interesting interplay with FN and Browning, and there always has been since John Browning was alive, and he did a lot of his work that wound up being manufactured and produced by FN in Belgium. The Browning Arms Company in the United States is primarily a marketing company, although they do have some manufacturing that is done in the United States. FN is a company in Herstal, Belgium, and these two got together and merged, and also Winchester came in under their umbrella. And I haven't personally been able to figure out, who's the tail and who's the dog in that relationship, because conventionally you think that would probably be FN, but I have an instinct that on some things that is very much the Browning Arms Company that's steering the train on some things. So it's an interesting combination, but certainly two very large, very, very powerful companies. One thing that I want to share with you is, as we'll talk about more, the die was cast to discontinue the high power pistol in 1993. That decision to do that at FN happened then, and it was 1993. And it took them approximately 25 years to finish servicing all of their institutional customers, the militaries and law enforcements that they had sold high powers to over the years. They obviously, when you're the number one handgun on the planet in military and law enforcement, in which the Browning high power was, I believe, in 1993, it's tough to discontinue a model then when you have servicing obligations to all of these different places. So the actual decision to discontinue the model appears to have been made in 1993. In 1993, that was the year that Leon Hubert left FN. Now, he is the guy who had been working on all of what we now call the 21st century advancements for the high power design. And there was a parting of the ways. He was permitted to leave and was also able to leave with the ownership of some of his design work, like the SFS system, like the Picatinny rail for the high power, the RDIH grips that we have for the high power, and a catalog of other things that Leon Hubert had designed. That really the die was cast then, because everything that had been worked on inside of FN, as far as advancements for the high power design that bettered the high power design, left in FN in 1993, and there were really no major advancements or changes to the high power pistol from that point in 1993 until 2018, when it was finally had been discontinued at the end of 17. So we're going to continue on here. The high power name alludes to the 13 round magazine capacity. There are 10 round magazines, 13, 15 round flush fit magazines. There have also been some 15 or 17 round aftermarket magazines that were made in South Africa. A lot of the different clone makers did slightly different things with magazines. Metgar did make a 20 round at one time. Those are real hard to find. We're hoping to get them to make those again. And then there's some very long 30 and 32 and 34 round magazines that have been made. But there are much more options for magazines than just the 13 round, as the article says here. It says the high power name alludes to the 13 round magazine capacity, almost twice that of contemporary designs such as the Luger or Colt 1911. The pistol is often referred to as an HP for high power or high power, spelled H-I or H-I-G-H. GP for the French term grande puissance. And this is kind of a cool two words here. We hear people talk about the GP35. You hear that term for the high power pistol. Grande puissance. I wrote down the different English translations that would be acceptable for those two French words, and they would be major power, superpower, great power, or major force. All of those would be acceptable English translations of this grande puissance, which is the French term. The French have quite an influence in Belgium because they're neighbors and because the people in Belgium speak French, or at least in Liège and Herstal for sure. So the French have some influence over in that part of the world. Also known as the BAP, or the Browning Automatic Pistol, or BHP, meaning Browning High Power. The terms P35 and HP35 are also used based on the introduction of the pistol in 1935. Then, all of the different clones have got a model designation, and very few of them ever used the words high power. For example, the Bulgarian Arcus 94, that's a high power. FEG had a PK9, I think it is. That's a high power. FM had a different name for theirs in Argentina. But where we're going with this is we're going to be talking about all of them. There's an argument to be made that all of them are actually different guns. For the most part, that is true, and we'll be talking about that as well. But all of these different terms, all of this different terminology, and then all of the clones and their terminology for their model names, all of these are the high power design that we are digging deeper into. Several sources indicate that the official name was originally High Power, spelled H-I-G-H, while it was manufactured in Belgium by Fabrique Nationale prior to the German occupation in World War II. The FN plant was a major target for Hitler, and the reason why he went to that part of Belgium specifically had a lot to do with that weapons plant or that factory. Production of the weapon then moved. Prior to the German occupation in World War II, production of the weapon then moved to John Inglis and Company factory or plant in Canada. At some date afterwards, the name was changed to High Power with HI Power. Production, FN did not move production of the High Power to Canada ever. Dieudonné Save, when he was in Britain, because that's where he went when the Germans took over the FN plant, he got out of Dodge, he went to Britain. While he was there, he blueprinted 2 more High Powers. And this is where this separation between the 1911 and the High Power and the understanding behind how these 2 evolved, and specifically how the other FN or the other High Power clones evolved, very, very different from the 1911. The 1911's blueprints have never been a secret. The United States government bought them. They went to Colt, they went to Remington, they went to Singer Sewing Machine Company and Union Signal and Switch and a lot of different places that all made the 1911. The blueprints floated around everywhere, and today you can get them very easily for free. This is one of the reasons why the 1911 can be successfully made by 25 different manufacturers, is because the technology behind the firearm is no secret. So the only challenge is how do you perfectly make the 1911 per the blueprints. The High Power and the European approach to their technology and blueprints is completely opposite the road that the 1911 took. Dieudonné Save, the man who finished the High Power, when he escaped out of Belgium, he went to Britain and he took the technology with him. In other words, there was no blueprint technology for the High Power that was available. The equipment was still there, and they managed to run it, and the workers kept making High Powers. But the secret sauce, the blueprints, they didn't stick around. Dieudonné Save took those with him. And when I say they look at this very differently, today 25 or more companies manufacture the 1911 off of the same blueprints. FN did not even allow anybody to manufacture the High Power off of the same blueprints. The Inglis High Power that was produced in Canada, that was blueprints that Dieudonné Save created while he was in Britain, and he created them specifically for Inglis. The British version of the High Power, that's still yet another blueprint, and that was also created by Dieudonné Save for Britain. So in other words, the actual blueprints for the original FN High Power, these are highly guarded, and they weren't even given to Canada, they weren't even given to Britain. And what he did was he went through the blueprints and he went through the pistol and he made all kinds of changes. And they're very little, very subtle changes. Some of them make the guns look, quite a bit different aesthetically, from the exterior. But he made a lot of changes, and a lot of the parts are universal. They'll go from one High Power to another. Some of them are not. When we'll go into depth about which ones are and which ones aren't. So this is very, very different from the 1911 in that we say, these were produced in Canada. Yes, a version of the High Power is produced in Canada, and it is fair to say it is a different gun than the FN Browning High Power. That's it for this session. We're going to pick back up on this in the next one. Thank you very much for watching. Mark Allen, BHSpringSolutions LLC.